Almighty God, we just thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us to honor Michael Gaul. We thank you for his service to our nation and the service of so many others. And we pray that you'll bless this time that we share together. And may we ever be mindful of the great sacrifice that our veterans have made and continue to make every single day. Bless now this time as we share together. We pray in your holy and powerful name. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand for the Star Spangled Banner. Please be seated. This time I'd like to ask the Mayor of Fair Lawn, Mayor Kurt Palusa, to come and share.
Saying if someone's going to get mine.
Sorry, take this off so I can actually speak. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here, and I just want to thank everyone who had a part in putting this all together. I think, especially today, for the birth of our nation, it's very important to recognize all those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. This is a proclamation on behalf of the Borough of Fair Lawn. Whereas a ceremony commemorating the unveiling of the Veterans Banner for Michael Gaul was held on July 4th, 2020. And whereas Michael Gaul served with the Army in Vietnam from January 1969 to January 1970, with which time he was promoted to Specialist 4th Class. Michael served with the 1st Air Cavalry Division as a radio operator at the base camp located at Tai Ninh near the Cambodian border. And whereas Michael Gaul suffered terribly from his memories of the war, he died on February 3rd, 1989 as a result of health problems related to his emotional wounds. He was 40 years old. And whereas post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is a mental health condition that is triggered by a terrifying event, either experienced or witnessed, symptoms include flashbacks, nightmares, and severe anxiety, as well as uncontrollable thoughts about the event. And whereas, sadly, we have come to realize that not all wounds are visible. And in the United States, 22 veterans commit suicide each day. And whereas it is right and just that steps be taken to bring awareness to our community about the tragic consequences of our veterans and other members of community suffer as the result of PTSD. Now therefore the Borough Council and I, Kurt Paluso, Mayor of the Borough of Fair Lawn, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, do hereby proclaim Saturday, July 4th, 2020, Michael Gaul Remembrance Day within Fair Lawn, and ask our residents to remember Michael Gaul and other veterans in our community who tragically took their own lives as a result of PTSD. And I just want to also introduce, we have Deputy Mayor Reinitz, Deputy Mayor Rottensreich, and Councilman Kraus with us, as well as former Mayor Cosgrove will be speaking as well. And I just want to point out one thing on this proclamation. Many people may be familiar with former Mayor Dave Gans, who is currently a freeholder. Unfortunately, he lost his son to PTSD. And one of the stats he always shares is that those 22 veterans who commit suicide does not put in count many states who don't log that information. So even though 22 sounds like a lot, and it is, the number is really believed to be much higher. And I know that in Fairlawn, I want to really thank our Veterans Council for putting these banners up throughout town. I have a friend of mine who I lost through PTSD who graduated Fairlawn High School with me, Jason Dawson, whose banner is up in Fairlawn. And when I pass that banner, it brings very happy thoughts to my mind about, the times we had, but also remembers that as elected officials, we always have to do more to protect our living veterans and remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. So thank you all for coming out today and remembering all those who sacrificed for our nation.
Our next speaker is a former mayor and the son of a World War II veteran, John Cosgrove, and family friend to the Gaul family.
Thank you, David. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today because I know many of the Gauls, all 16 of them. I know most of them, having grown up in the neighborhood, and I've been to birthday parties, I've been to christenings, I've performed weddings for you, so I know your family quite well. But I didn't know Michael to speak to him, but I grew up 2 blocks away on Haywood Ave, and when I was a teenager, we would ride our bikes down here to Jay's Sweet Shop or Miami Joe's to get our hair cut. And Michael would often be sitting on the front porch, staring into space. And we would often say, that's the guy who got messed up in Vietnam. And now today we know that that was an illness that we now know what it is. It's post-traumatic stress. And Michael suffered while many people in those days did not understand. But I'm really happy that today in Fairlawn, I want to thank the mayor and council. When I was on the mayor and council, I spoke about Michael and we spoke about all the people. You know, we have 47 Fairlawn residents that were killed in action in war, but we also have these people that have lost their lives because of post-traumatic stress, and Michael and David Gantz's son Scott, and I want to thank the council for being right on board and voting for it. I want to thank Nick Magarelli, our Veterans Affairs person, for following through on it. So today it's really great that we can put this banner here on Jasper Road and honor Michael for the honors that he really needed. So God bless Michael Gaul, God bless America, and happy Independence Day. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tony Gaul, a brother.
Often it's said about my brother that the real Mike died in Vietnam. And I'd like to share some stories and maybe counter that. As you grew up in Fairlawn, you went to Memorial Pool. In Memorial Pool, one of our practices was to pass the deep water test, and a self-explanatory test. What we did was we used to swim pole to pole. There was these poles that had in between a rope, and we would divide the deep end with the shallow end. I'm practicing one day, and my brother walks up to me and says, "You know how to swim. What are you still swimming here for? You're going to swim in the shallow end your whole life?" So I went on after a few tries, passed my deep water test. And then another family tradition was going to Jones Beach in New York. I'm sitting on the edge of the shoreline, digging a hole, watching the water fill it back up, and digging another one. And you know, here comes my brother Mike again. He goes, "When are you joining us in the water?" I go, "I've never been out that deep before." He goes, "Are you going to swim in the shallow water your whole life?" After a few tries, a few trips out there, I'm riding the waves in with all my brothers and sisters. And then comes another part of your life where you're going to get your driver's license. Now, there was extra pressure on me because my 7 brothers before me passed the first time. So we had to do that. I had to do that. And Michael was certainly going to help me with that. So, but my father had a rule that I wasn't allowed to drive his car to practice until no, you had your permit, yes, but I'm saying, but driver's ed had to be passed behind the wheel before he would let you drive it. So I did that. Me and Mike went out and we did our left turns, we did our right turns, we did our parallel parking. And then all of a sudden I found myself on River Road and Elmore Park. Well, I think we all know where the entrance there is. He goes, "You've driven on Route 80 before?" I go, "No, I'm really scared about that." He goes, "Well, you're gonna today." We get on Route 80, we drive, we get off, and he talks, and then I went on past my driver's test. So then obviously the next step is you get your first car. Well, a lot of times me and Mike, we would go to parties together. You know, we would late risers, whatever we got there, so we would go together. And I believe this party was at my sister Patty's house. And
Shocker.
it starts to snow. So Mike looks at me, goes, "It's getting pretty deep out there. We might want to get closer to home." So I go to flip him my keys. He goes, "What are you doing?" You got me here. You're taking me home. So I drove home in the snow. He goes, how were you supposed to ever learn how to drive in the snow until you do it? So and then another time, I got into a little entanglement, we'll say, in New York City. And I didn't know where, and the New York police wanted to talk to me. And I said, okay. And I said, Mike, could you drive me in? I don't know where this is. He drives me in. And I say to him, I said, Mike, I'm really scared. He goes, what are you scared about? Did you break the law? I said, I don't think so. Did you do anything wrong? I said, I don't think so. He goes, so go in and tell the truth. Go in and come back out, and there he is. He's got my T-Rows off my brand new Camaro. And he's leaning up against the car, and he goes, well, how'd it go? I said, well, they told me if they need to talk to me again, they'll be in touch with me. He flips me my keys. I said, Mike, I don't know where I am. I don't know how to get home. He goes, I'll direct you home, but you're driving. So we're driving through the Lincoln Tunnel, get on Route 3, and I look at him and I say, guess I ain't swimming in the shallow water anymore. And he goes, you got a long way to go, Chooch. Well, today we're here because of a lot of people. First of all, I'd like to thank my sister Mary Jane for having us. I'd like to thank the Borough of Fairlawn. I'd like to help Ron and thank Ron for the aggravation my niece gave him for a week. No, it got bad. It got bad. It got worse during the last week. Trust me. She was just giving him a stare up on the pole. Poor guy's dripping his sweat up there. So, and especially, he's a little redhead.
Stand up. Stand up.
We wouldn't be here today without you. And of course, his 4 beautiful grandchildren. I love you, Paula. And thank you for today.
Our next speaker is a nephew, Wes Harden.
All right, thanks, Tone. How do I follow that up? Cool. First of all, like Tony said, we'd like to thank everybody for coming. On behalf of my grandparents, Jim and Eleanor, all the brothers, sisters, cousins, nephews, aunts, second cousins, great-grands, first, once removed, second, third, 2.5 times pi, back to the second, third. Yeah, we're related. We're brofies, as Chris Kovic once told me. Dude, just tell them we're brofies. It's easier. So anyway, huge thing. Paul's been working on this for a long time, and here we are. Hard to hold it together, I'm sure. I'm going to do the best I can. A couple stories about Mike, too. I think we should all do that, but I don't want to make this about me. This is Mike's day, and the biggest thing we want to do is draw attention to PTSD. That 22 is, like the mayor said, it's an off number by far. There's guys dying in the VA hospital parking lot trying to get help. So the more attention we can bring to that, the better. I just had a khaki shirt on like this. All you guys can be jealous. This is the prototype for today's shirt for Mike. Got his face in memory of Mike Lee Gaul, Spec 4 Vietnam, and his dates, right? So, all right. Couple quick stories, you know. First of all, how many people in the group have been hit by Mike with a liver shot? Oh, atta girl, Mom. Way to hit you up there. Well, he used to hit you with this like paralyzing, I don't know what it was, but you knew you got him to the point where he didn't want to talk to you anymore. So he would just drop you and say, yeah, whatever, and leave you there, and you talk later. So, all right, the other one is like the funniest story for me with Mike ever. So he's on one of those deals where he's off the walls we talk about, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes too. So we end up at the Ridgewood Duck Park. How, why, I don't know. Because after, 2 or 3 hours of that, we both stopped paying attention. Oh, look, something shiny. Good, let's follow the duck up there. Oh, we're in Ridgewood. All right. So we'll just call these two older ladies Madge and Blanche. So they're sitting at the bench. They're over by there. Me and Mike are talking about something, probably nothing. And the one lady says, what are you doing? You're not going to finish that? She said, no, I can't eat all this. She goes, okay, just feed it to the pelicans. They were Canadian geese. So the running joke for years were, dude, you going to finish that? He's like, yeah, we'll give it to the pelicans. So, again, that's a couple stories. I mean, there's a million. We all have them. So I love that guy to death. I know everybody here did, whatever. but he could always make you laugh. And if you ever want to know what he was about,
Breathe.
put him in a room with a kid or a puppy. I need a chair because I can't stand here and read this, so. And I might fall down.
Yeah, that was close.
So, I'm in college, like, 10 years too late, like I do most things. So I have a writing class, and teacher says, Mr. Harden, I need to see you tomorrow in the cafeteria. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm getting kicked out of school. Let me explain this one to Mom. 28 now, dude, you're gone. So, of course, always waiting for the other shoe to fall, but I meet the guy in the lunch area. I worked all night, whatever I was doing. I got there. I said, sir, is everything all right? He said, oh, it's more than all right. He said, we read the story you wrote in Creative Writing 1. And he said, I read it to my 2 class. There wasn't a dry eye in a place. I said, all right, so why am I here? He said, well, I got a friend of mine who works for Reader's Digest, and we'd love to publish this. He said, there's only one contingency. You have to add 500 words. I said, sir, with all due respect, there was one draft of the story. It's between me and my uncle. So here it is. I guess my first memories of him were the long trips, the root beer barrels, counting cars with Tony for points. Just me, Mommy, Grandma, and Tony, my older uncle by 1 year. We were going to see my mother's younger brother, Mike. Why did we have to go all the way to Pennsylvania just to say hello to Uncle Mike? What's an Army hospital? Are we there yet? No, I saw that car first, Tony. Isn't Valley Forge where George Washington stayed? This Valley Forge was a huge hospital with a lot of land in the beautiful Pennsylvania countryside. Uncle Mike looked fine. Why then was he in the hospital? Why can't he be with us? The hardest part of every visit, having to leave him there, was the toughest part. The good part was almost every time Uncle Mike had a new harmonica for me. I had no idea they came in so many sizes. He was always nice to me, and I just wanted him to come home so I could see him whenever I wanted. But he was too sick to come home yet. What do you mean he's sick? He's not coughing, no fever, no bellyache, whatever. He was talking very slowly and walking very slowly, too. They said it was the medication. I said, why are they giving him medication if he's not sick? He was sick, in the head. Why? Because he just came back from Vietnam. What's Vietnam? Where's Vietnam? Why was my Uncle Mike there? He was a 19-year-old kid who couldn't even go to sleepover camp, has to go to the other side of the world. Why? To fight in the Vietnam War. Why? To defend our country and protect our freedom. How'd he get sick? There was too much going on for the 19-year-old kid to handle. As I got older, the picture would unfold for me. My uncle was a radio man in Vietnam. Unfortunately, that's the first guy Charlie goes for. You can't be a real effective fighting force with no communication. He was a Spec 4, equivalent to a corporal. After several nervous breakdowns, he was sent home. And from talking to my relatives, the real Uncle Mike never came back. So the only Uncle Mike I knew was the card-carrying lunatic he told me he was and showed me the card several times. After the Army Hospital at Valley Forge, he was transferred to Lions VA Hospital in South Orange. Again, the root beer barrels flowed and more harmonicas were collected. But by now it wasn't fun. It was scary to see him doing the drugged-out shuffle. Dragging his feet, looking terrible was not the way I'd like to see my uncle. Finally, one day he came home. I was so glad I wouldn't have to go far to see him. Without knowing it, I developed a very emotional bond with Mike. And it seemed to me I was his favorite too. My uncle was always a happy guy at home, by today's standards, a couch potato. But then there were the times he went off the wall. Off the wall, as we called it, was when he would have his flashbacks. He would just go nuts for a month or two, and you never knew where he was. He would think nothing of walking 20 miles in a day, collecting garbage, doing drugs, barroom brawl here and there, and just fighting his war with society and himself. And the drugs were a trick he picked up in the jungle. Heroin, the big escape. Amazingly enough, when he was off the wall, I was not afraid of him. In fact, that was the time we spent most of our quality time together. Me, his link to reality, poor guy, keeping him out of trouble, and he, the horror storyteller about his days in Nam and the nothing he came home to. There was no parade for these soldiers, just spitting in their face, baby killer cliches, and total disregard for these war heroes. But soon he'd be back to the TV and the laziness, the happy-go-lucky guy. The doctors told him he would never see 40. So, 40, almost 41. Good job, Mike. There were a million diagnoses for my uncle's condition. My diagnosis was that a kid had his emotions shattered by the crash of mortar fire and crackle of rounds in a jungle a million miles away from home, fighting a war he knew he couldn't win. Mike eventually did manage to get married, but inevitably it ended in divorce. He also has a daughter who is now 14. That's when I wrote this story. Now we jump forward to the recent past. It was February 3rd, 1989, and Mike was strung out again. Me and Uncle Tony, the aforementioned kid, were now 23 and 24 respectively. We were ringing the telephone in Uncle Mike's room to get a rise from him. he would normally come out and let us know if we didn't knock it off, a beating would ensue. Or he would come out, beat the hell out of us, and tell us if we didn't shut up, another beating would ensue. This time, however, there was no response. But it was nothing for Mike to sleep 2 or 3 days in a row after staying awake that long, doing his thing. This was different. My grandmother notified the paramedics. I was screaming at him to wake up, no response. He was transported to Valley Hospital in pretty bad shape. At the emergency room, I lied about being his brother so I could be with him. Holding his hand. Stop it. I lied about being his brother, holding his hand and pleading for him to wake up and go fishing with me. Just me and Mike bogged down, dug in against the enemy. About 4 hours later, Mike lost his battle. Or maybe he won. The war was finally over, and he was heading home to that parade. Although I know my uncle is no longer with us, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about him. And I'm still damn proud to be his nephew. Take care, Mike. Whiskey, Echo, Sierra, out. All right, we're going to hand it off.
I'd like to invite his brother, Tim Gaul, to come. That's right. Yep.
All right, no pressure.
Tim, you want a chair?
No, I'm good.
All right, cool.
My name might not do that. No.
Following these two guys is pretty tough to do, but they're going to be incorporating a little bit my story too. Okay, I have to take notes because I forget what I do 5 minutes ago. Never mind.
Oh, that's great.
So, for me to tell a story of Mike, and I'll call it a tale of two Mikes because Wes touched on it, Tony touched on it. There was a tale of two Mikes. My relationship with him, there were two of him. He would attest to that by calling himself.
The card-carrying lunatic.
Okay.
I got proof.
You got papers to
For
show.
the purpose of my story, I'll refer to him as Fat Mike and Skinny Mike.
That's right.
That's right.
And if I offend anybody by this reference, oh well. As the picture I treasure will show, Skinny Mike and I mixed it up from an early age and later on for very different reasons. I got props.
All right.
The picture shows him teaching me how to box with a present I received in 1965 for Christmas. But the later tussles were more like wrestling matches because I was offended about what he said or what he did. And I just didn't understand today, or then, and certainly not today, what he was going through. Those wrestling matches really didn't last very long because that was Skinny Mike. And he weighed about as much as Twiggy. I know you older people can relate to that. The young ones, I'm not so sure, but Google it. I had no idea, as I said before, what Skinny Mike, and probably still don't know, I learned, but as I grew older, I learned to be more tolerant and prayed for him often. Okay, so let's go on to Fat Mike, or Fat, as I like to call him. Fat introduced me to a game called Jeopardy, and his host, Art Fleming. Again, some people know what I'm talking about.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
It's an obsession I carried with me to today, as my wife can attest to. We don't bother me between 7 and 7:30. Depending where you live.
That's right, 7:30.
Jersey still got it right.
We get it first.
All right. For his compassion and supportive side, the story I like to tell about Fat is the time I was playing football in college for Division IV Ramapo. I had a game at Providence, Rhode Island. And I was warming up with my team when I hear someone yell, "Hey, Chooch!" I said, that can only be one person. I think he made that word up, which I found out he did not.
Probably told you did.
I turned to look, and there was my brother Mike with the Loud Brothers in tow. For those who don't know who the Loud Brothers are, they will wave. Okay? Talk about being compassionate and supportive. He drove 3 hours with stereo loud to watch me kick a football maybe 4 times. I was on the field for no more than 20 seconds. One more page, folks. And one other story that you may not know, at Mike's gravesite, we circled around Mom, listened to Mike's latest favorite group of musicians, Traveling Wilburys, on a cassette tape. Old people. Mom started to weep. She not only shared tears of sorrow for the loss of her son, but for the tears of joy, knowing how much he was loved.
Deep breath, brother.
Paula, that would be proud. For you put this long overdue recognition. Carmen? Wave, Carmen.
Stand up, Carmen.
Stand up, Carmen.
Stand up, Carmen.
Stand up, Carmen.
She's like, I am standing up.
Thank you for working to get Mike and other vets remembered in a Washington, D.C. ceremony at the Vietnam Vets Memorial some 20 years ago. I have more props. Although the names were not on the wall, the mementos that were left were gathered and placed in the archives of the Smithsonian Institute. When we lost the Mikes to the Vietnam War, the world lost a beautiful mind. We probably liked Fat Mike a little bit more than Skinny Mike, but we love them both the same. Thank you.
This time I'd like to invite Nicholas Macarelli Sr., the Office of Veterans Affairs for Fair Lawn. He's going to make a presentation.
Look how skinny it was.
Thank you, everybody. It's an honor to be here today to honor the memory of Michael. PTSD is very real. 22 a day is very real. And a lot of the problem, it isn't the resources, because the resources at the VA are fantastic. You can have people coming up next on the Vet Center to talk about the resources that are out there. They're wonderful. The doctors are wonderful. It's two things. It's the red tape in the VA to get to the help, to get through the claims, so they'll pay for the resources, they'll pay for the medication, they'll stop looking at everybody as they're lying about the claims, they're just trying to make a cent and get them the help that they need. That's the problem, because by the time they get the help, it's too late, all right? Another thing is the stigma. All right, because you're looked at as a weirdo, you're looked at as you're crazy, you're looked at as a loner, you're looked at as unreliable, you can't be in a relationship, you're looked at as an alcoholic, you're looked at as an addict. All right, you take 3 steps forward every day and you take 5 steps back. It's a war every single day. And how do I know that their resources work? All right, I'm gonna break the stigma. They've saved my life. All right, I'm diagnosed with PTSD and they've saved my life. So it can work, and that's why we're here to help these veterans get to those resources and keep them living, all right? I just want to present this to Paula. Let me tell you something. I never knew her father, and her father was a fighter. Paula's a fighter, because Paula does not take no for an answer.
Really?
And she will haunt you until your dying days, but... All right, in recognition and memory, military service to Michael E. Gaul, who served courageously in the United States Army, who fought in the Vietnam War, who when he returned home, the war returned with him, who fell victim to one of the most catastrophic injuries of war, post-traumatic stress disorder. We honor Michael E. Gaul for his service and his never-ending memory.
I'd now like to ask Mary Ellen Krushkoff to come from Adopt a Soldier Platoon for another presentation. Don't go anywhere, Paula.
Good morning. Can you hear me with this on? My name is Mary Edna Kruchkoff, and that's okay. We've lived in Fairlawn since 1983. However, I'm a child of the 60s, and I lived in Washington, D.C. as a nurse between the years of 1968 and 1971. I was working as a nurse in the hospital down there and going to school, and saw the guys coming back firsthand. I did my best to help support some of them because I dated a bunch of the guys. But now fast forward to 2003, we started as a nonprofit here in Fairlawn, based in Fairlawn, called Adopt a Soldier Platoon. We support the military when they're serving downrange by sending care packages and things to them. We realized several years ago that the battles were not over when they came back. We ourselves have a non-biological son who lost both his legs in Afghanistan in 2010. So starting going forward from there, we are supporting the wounded guys. We do a lot to help them. Last year, we spent over $100,000 supporting the wounded guys, and a lot of those are mostly people suffering from PTS. We're all volunteers, so it's our honor, and we do this from our hearts. What I wanted to present to Paula today is a small American flag. And just to let you know, things are different. I was in D.C. when they came back. I know what they went through. It was not pleasant. This flag was displayed in what's known as Warrior's Way. It's the portico in the hospital, in Craig Hospital in Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. And under this portico, every single wounded person comes in, some breathing, some unfortunately in a body bag. They're brought under this flag. We sent some of these small flags over there, and these are the staff there, the nurses, the doctors, the technicians, holding and displaying these flags. And we're giving this to you in honor of your father, Michael Gaul, for his service to our nation. It is never too late to forget, to remember, and to continue to support. God bless you.
Two other veterans with us from the Veterans Administration, Guy Vanterpool and Scott Dedayan. And they're going to come share a little bit about military PTSD outreach.
Thanks, Dan. So good morning. My name is Scott Dedayan. I'm from the Vet Center in Secaucus. Guy is from the Vet Center in Bloomfield. And what we do at the Vet Center, we're a community-based VA readjustment counseling center. And what that means is, primarily, we're treating combat-associated PTSD in veterans. Where we came from is important and pertinent to why we're here today. First of all, the condition PTSD was not diagnosable until 1980. So before that, you didn't have a name for what these veterans were going through when they came home from Vietnam. Prior wars to that, you had shell shock, battle fatigue. Essentially, just deal with it and get over it like everybody else did before you, which we know now it's not possible. You can't ask someone to do that. The Vietnam veteran community was integral in research that developed the ability for us to call this condition PTSD. The symptoms and effects that it had on them was almost universal. Part of what caused that is how combat changed in Vietnam. Everything prior to that was kind of rules of engagement, you know, World War I, the trench warfare. Vietnam, it's coming out of the trees, it's tunnels, it's guerrilla warfare. It was like nothing ever seen before, and the way that it affected people. We work for the VA, but we work for the Vet Center. And the reason I say that is because I'm about to throw the VA under the bus. Back then, when the Vietnam veterans were first coming home, they would go to the VA and say, "I'm not okay, I need help." And VA would say, "No, you don't. There's nothing wrong with you. Get over it, like everyone did before you." In some cases, someone was severely affected. They'd get some level of care, but it wasn't appropriate. because this condition didn't have a name and didn't have proven treatment for it. That led to the creation of this idea of veterans taking care of each other. Because what do you do when you're in the middle of it? You look to your battle buddy, you look to the guy next to you, you look to somebody who went through what you did to understand. Because you feel as though everyone around you and your family cannot. These created these groups, like think group therapy, but a little bit more alcohol going on than probably should be. But you're able to talk about what you're feeling, what you're going through, remember your experience in combat with someone who understands because they were there. This idea and this motion gained so much traction and attention that in 1979, Congress voted to adopt this vet center idea into the VA. Put money behind it, put staff behind it, and take care of the veterans who are suffering. So as time went on, we identify you need actual certified licensed mental health providers doing the counseling rather than just a local complaining session. And we've grown. Originally we were only for Vietnam veterans, then you add Korea, you add World War II, you had Desert Storm, you had the non-metal conflicts like Lebanon, Grenada, Panama, those kind of things. And now you have the current war, Iraq and Afghanistan, and supporting conflicts as well. What we do at the Vet Center,
That'd be great.
number one, we're staffed with at least 60% veterans on staff. Myself and Guy, we're both veterans. I served in the Navy, Guy served in the Army.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. In our position in outreach, we need to be veterans also. Because if I'm going to make contact with someone, I need you to trust me. The fact that I wore a uniform sets that trust. Even though I wasn't directly in combat being a Navy veteran, it's still, you kind of get it. You know where I'm coming from. Our counselors, a lot of them are veterans as well. A lot of us who work at the Vet Center have gotten treatment for PTSD. We've made it through that treatment cycle. So not only are you a licensed mental health provider, you also recovered or are dealing with how you've learned strategies to cope with the condition. Another thing that sets the Vet Centers apart, we can treat family as well. The rest of the VA can't do that, but we can extend our counseling services to spouses, siblings, children, parents, cousins, best friend you grew up with that is like a brother to you. We can treat that person because we identify the need for a support system. The veteran cannot be expected to go through it alone. And one of the problems with PTSD is you think nobody can understand, or you think you can't put the weight and gravity of what you're going through on your family. It's not fair to them. They weren't there, they don't need that. The family wants to help, and they don't necessarily know how. So we are able to support both to the family, help explain what the veteran is going through, how you can help, how you can be supportive, and then to the veteran, trying to understand where their family is coming from. Because like I said, we identify the need for that support system. You can't do it by yourself. You can't do it just by coming to therapy and talking to someone once a week. You need to be able to have people you can count on. And we identify that, we recognize that, and that's why we're able to extend that service to families. Nick mentioned before, excuse me, the red tape sometimes at the VA. When it comes to accessing mental health service at the VA, one thing that people run into sometimes is that they may be told they're not eligible. VA healthcare eligibility gets into some red tape with discharge status, which is sometimes an issue. It gets into red tape sometimes with you don't neatly fit into a term of conflict. With the Vet Center, we are devoid of red tape. As long as you meet the eligibility requirements, which are relatively fluid sometimes, you are eligible for service just by providing us with a DD-214. That's it. That extends service to the veteran and to their family. There are no fees or costs for anything that we do. It's only counseling. We can't do medication. We would help refer either to VA psychiatry or something in the community. But the counseling services, including groups and family and whatever might be needed, that is all free of charge. You all pay your taxes. Thank you for your donation to the Vet Center. So when you talk about veterans and combat-associated PTSD, or any traumatic event that someone survives while they're in service, there's things that, like Nick mentioned, when you come home, it's a change in culture. You spend so much time being trained how to be a soldier, a sailor, an airman, or a Marine, that's who you are. And part of that becomes, you don't say anything when you're hurt. You need to get back out there, because you're no help to us if you're on sick call laying in your rack. And that, it stays with you, no matter how messed up you might be. I can't be sick right now. I have to go to work. I have to take care of my family. Mission continues whether I'm okay or not. And it in some cases, it prevents us from seeking help. And usually what it takes is somebody who has gotten help to say, listen, I know what you're going through. I was there 4 years ago, but it has helped me. Just trust me. Call the vet center, call the VA, whatever it is. So we rely on Guy and I doing things like this, outreach, making sure we inform people that we exist and what we do. We lovingly refer to ourselves as the best kept secret in VA. You may go to the VA hospital and mention a vet center and they don't know what you're talking about. That's fine, it keeps us working. But we also depend on community. So organizations like VFWs, American Legions, community resources, Adopt a Soldier Platoon, anything and everything that we can say, hey, this is what we do for veterans, that spreads the word, makes people know that we exist and how we can help. That helps more veterans get into connection with our services. One of VA's primary goals right now is preventing veteran suicide. It's a huge initiative across both VA and the Vet Center. We have resources available that can connect veterans with the Veterans Crisis Line. We have informative brochures. We have gun locks for if anyone owns a firearm that they want to protect. The time it'll take to undo the lock may be what stops you from completing that act. So our goal, Vet Center and VA alike, is to do as much as we can to prevent suicide, screening and making sure that we offer and connect veterans to services. So Guy and I both have business cards on us. If anyone's interested, please get both of them. It doesn't matter where someone lives. I'm in Secaucus, he's in Bloomfield. There's a vet center in Lakewood, Trenton, and South Jersey in Egg Harbor Township, as well as all over New York City and Pennsylvania. Doesn't matter where they are. You call us, we will get you connected to whatever works best for the veteran. Okay?
I want to thank everybody who showed up. I just want to stress that please, the vet centers are here for not only the veteran, but their family members. I get calls all the time. My uncle just had a stroke, and he never signed up for the VA. All right, a lot of older veterans are stubborn. They think, oh, I came back with my legs. I'll leave it for the guys who didn't come back with everything. That's not how the VA works. Okay? VA benefits are part of your paycheck. If you accepted your paycheck, you need to accept your benefits. All right, I can't stress this enough, and the benefits aren't just for the veteran, they're for the families as well. So please, family members, call me or Scott. We'll come out anytime, any day, wherever you need us to be, we'll be. All right, me and him take this personally because we've served. I did 2 tours in Afghanistan. I've been to that hospital. So I can't stress this enough. We're here for you guys, but we can only come out here and give you the information. You have to take advantage of it. So if you know any veteran or their family member, please have them get in contact with us. I can't stress it enough, all right? And I want to thank everybody here and welcome them home if they haven't been welcomed home already. And we're here for you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Hey, a couple quick things I wanted to talk about. I forgot. Shocker. A couple people that couldn't be here that wanted to. JD, John DeVanzo, wanted to be here. Kathy said, try to get on a plane. You won't have to worry about COVID because I'll kill you. My Uncle Jimmy couldn't be here today. And speaking of Vietnam vets, first land battle, Vietnam, he was on a Iwo Jima helicopter carrier. the battle for Chu Lai, Operation Starlight. He always likes to laugh because the clerk kept writing it down as Operation Starlight instead of Satellite, and they didn't feel like doing it over, so. But talk about a crazy, badass Marine, James J. Gaul Jr., Semper Fi, hoorah. Also, the gentleman who hasn't budged out of parade rest over there to my left. 2 tours of Afghanistan, 1 of Iraq. And I don't think, I think he would definitely tell you that none of that was tougher than the 20-year tour with my cousin Paula. So just a little about Ron. We were talking about this whole thing going back and forth. I know I wouldn't want to get my ass beat by Paul every day. Then he was between me and Paul every day going back and forth. Paul was like, well, you guys figure it out then. I'm like, okay, Ron, get on the phone. Hey, what's going on, man? Nothing, bro. The banner's up there. All we got to do is go get it, and we'll hang it. Okay, you like this one? Yeah, I do. Well, now if she's mad about how it looks, too bad. She told us to handle it. So, but he's been behind the scenes, this, that, and the other thing. I asked him a couple of questions about what he thought we should do. What he said was total nonsense, and he said, no, I'm just going to watch this happen and let the family take care of it. Well, I corrected him pretty quickly because he is family. He's a combat veteran, and thank you very much for your service and my freedom. Cuz.
All right, next. For our last speaker, Michael's daughter, Paula.
Go get it, kid. That's it, hit a home run.
That's right, dude. Bottom of the ninth, knock it out of the park. Breathe.
Thank you guys, everybody, for coming out. Cosgrove, Nick, Kurt, everybody here. Joe, my husband, batshit crazy. Sorry, I cursed. The family, oh my God, you guys are amazing. Show my dad all the love that he deserved. Man, you guys. Best men I know. But this is the boss right here. This is the man. I know that you forever will have my 6. I love you for that. And if I get locked up, you know. Fairlawn PD. I wrote something a while ago, and I'm going to just say that. It says, where do I even begin? I'm so overwhelmed with happiness. I worked many months with Fairlawn Veterans Department and everyone outside the box to get my father to be seen as a true hero. Nick, I know I drove you batshit crazy, bro. I love you. I swear. I won't hit you, I promise. I pushed with all of my heart to have him praised upon for being just the best man I could call daddy. I went through many different hoops and different ways to show the world just how much he meant to me and everyone who loved him. I often cried days and nights because I didn't know what I was doing or how to do it. Recently, I started to tell people his story, not just the Mike Gaul as my dad, but the story people needed to hear. The stories too often that are never told. I sat down countless nights and started remembering the nights he told me as a child. I remember when he would sit in the bathtub for days and nights. I remember when he would make us sit in complete darkness. I remember when he would not want to be bothered. I remember him telling me his best friend was blown into pieces and he tried to put him back together. I remember the nights he cried in his pillow. I remember he would wake up and jump out of bed and jump on the floor. But while I was a kid, I just thought it was what he saw, not what he felt. But I remember even on his worst day, though, he would say, "Paula, scratch my back." So many things play in my head of his life. As a child, I didn't understand, till now. I remember the day he left me. Dad, really? The day I could never get back. The day my heart and soul broke. My whole world was lost. As a child, all I had was his memories, both good and bad. I went through life missing him, not ever understanding why he left. Till now. I finally understand why he is gone. I finally understand his dreams and his broken words. Although he was home, he was still fighting a war in his head. He was suffering from PTSD. It all adds up now. I sit alone sometimes and I wish I could have saved my dad. I wish I knew the answers.
Breathe, kiddo, breathe.
If only I had more time. I get why today he isn't here with me, and that's okay, because he will forever be my hero. I continue to live for him and hope to make him proud. I am proud to be his daughter, and till the day I die, I will continue to honor him as my hero. Dad, who loves you, baby?
Let me ask you all now to stand with me for our benediction, which is entitled the Battle Prayer. It'll be followed by the playing of taps and then Amazing Grace on the bagpipes, and at which time, during the playing of Amazing Grace, the banner will be unveiled. So will you bow with me in prayer? Young warriors, should fate find you on the battlefield, may your cause be a just one. May your courage not falter. May you show mercy to your enemies. May your efforts bring the blessings of peace. May you be triumphant. May your sacrifice be always appreciated. May you endure the conflict unharmed. Should you be harmed, may your wounds heal. Should you perish in the struggle, may God embrace you and find a place for you in his kingdom. Amen.
Amen.
Please sound taps. Thank you all for coming.
Gonna get dressed up and we're gonna make like you got drinks and stuff.
National Guard people. I mean, the guy who killed my son on deployment.
Look like nothing's gonna come out. Watching the tide sitting on a soccer Look like nothing's gonna everything still remains the same. I can't do what ten people tell me to do. So I guess I'll remain
Although I haven't played on pipes in like 30 years.
One thing. There's some battery in there.
Oh yeah. We're having
All of us were Vietnam vets. None of us were